remember sitting there in my room at 3 in the morning as the medal ceremony took place and as the national anthem of Latvia played. Yep, the small Baltic country of Latvia won the very first ever men's BMX gold medal. Something came over me. I wanted to do that. I longed to do that. When I was 15, I had some weights set up in my garage, some things that I would use to work out and to train for BMX. I had some posters of my favorite pros up on the wall and some other little motivational pieces. But that very next day, after I watched the Olympic Games from China, I went down to my garage, I grabbed a Sharpie, and I wrote on my parents' garage wall, "I will one day become world champion and win an Olympic gold medal." Life's too short, life's too precious to not dream big. And if you dream big and you go for an outlandish goal, even if you come up short, you'll never have the regret of going for it. Because at the end of the day, you can say you went for it. Nothing is worse than getting to the end of your life and thinking, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have tried this. Well, what exactly is gold? For me, it literally meant an Olympic gold medal. But for you, it could be reaching a target weight loss. It could be making 6 figures. It could be becoming a CEO. Gold is the accumulation of years and years of hard work. But gold is also a process. You don't just jump up out of bed one morning, wake up and get your gold. You have to learn how to get that gold. And when I say gold, I mean the peak of whatever it is that you are capable of. There's a reason why when we watch the Olympics on TV, the slogan is, go for the gold. And the slogan is not, go for the bronze. Going for the gold just means that you are 100% committed to do your best to achieve whatever it is that you have identified as your gold medal.
Ladies and gentlemen, our general session speaker for today, Olympic gold medalist, Mr. Connor Fields.
Imagine that your heart is racing. Imagine being so nervous that you've barely been able to eat for days. Imagine knowing that everything in your 17-year career comes down to this one moment. Imagine knowing that there are 3 billion people around the world watching you. And imagine knowing that you have the hopes of an entire country resting on your shoulders. You just imagined what it feels like in the moments before lining up for the finals at the Olympic Games. At the end of the day, a lot of it really comes down to belief. If you don't believe yourself that you can do that, if you don't believe that you can become an Olympic medalist or an Olympic champion, it's never gonna happen. So it all has to start with a belief in yourself. In 2009, I turned 16, and I was finally old enough to begin competing at BMX World Cups, which are the highest level of competition that we have, and the series that earns you a spot into the Olympics. I'll never forget how nervous I was to compete at my very first World Cup. I was literally shaking in the starting line. I'm now gonna be racing against the guys that I have on posters in my garage, the guys that I stayed up all night to watch a year before on TV at the Olympics. Somehow I advanced out of my qualifier through my heat. I made it out of the quarterfinal, out of the semifinal, and I went on to place 3rd in my very first World Cup, which set a record that still stands to this very day for the youngest racer to ever stand on the podium at a BMX World Cup. But more importantly, it was in that moment as I stood on the podium where they wouldn't even give me the champagne because I wasn't legally old enough to spray it or drink it. And I looked to the guy next to me, and he was the guy who had won the Olympics a year before. And I kind of realized in that moment, I might actually be able to do this. 2 years later, in 2011, I won my first World Cup. And I backed it up by winning another World Cup in 2012. And I qualified for the London Olympic Games at 19 years old, where I would be the youngest rider competing in my event. And I went into it ranked world number 2. I was sitting in the starting line 35 seconds away from winning a gold medal. And I choked. I completely failed. And I took second to last place. Over the next 4 years, I had to figure out how to not do that again. I had to look at what happened, deal with what happened, and figure out how to get it right the next time. And over those next 4 years, as I began working towards another chance at the Olympics, I tried to adopt a new way of thinking. I was at point A, and I want to get to point B. Point A is today, and point B is an Olympic gold medal. I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do everything I can to overcome whatever happens and to learn from whatever happens and to stay committed and believe in myself that I could achieve my goal. In 2014, the biggest race of the year was the World Championships. I won my heat. I won my quarterfinal. I won my semifinal. And I found myself in lane number 1 in the pole position as the number 1 seed, deja vu from London 2 years earlier. I was in the exact same situation. The only difference here was that it was a World Championship gold medal and not an Olympic gold medal that I was going for. The gate goes down for that final, and I have an amazing start. 8 seconds later, I'm in the lead, and I grab what's called the hole shot. I round the first corner in the front. I'm halfway around the track when my biggest rival undercuts me and takes me out. I'll never forget how I felt on that day, both during competition and after. During, I felt invincible. Everything was working exactly how I wanted it to. Everything was clicking. And after, I will never forget hearing the Australian national anthem play. As hard as it was, everything that happened on that day, I used to prepare myself and make myself better for the Rio Olympics. We were out at the track, practicing, working the different lines through the different sections. We'd been riding for about an hour when I misjudged the distance on a jump. And I smashed into the ground going 40 miles an hour. So Doc had to end up doing what's called a vascularized bone graft, meaning he took a piece of bone from my arm, cut it out, and screwed it to my scaphoid with 4 screws in the hopes that the blood would transfer from the live bone into the dead bone, essentially bringing it back to life. He explained that while I was under, he actually had to call multiple other surgeons to get an opinion on what to do, and that we were in uncharted territory here. And while all this was going on, there was really only one thing I wanted to know. Doc, how long? How long am I off the bike? So in my Keynote Gold, G, O, L, and D all stand for individual principles. The G is goals and goal setting, the O is to overcome, the L is learn, and D is determination. And if you're gonna be a successful business person or a successful athlete, those are 4 principles that you're gonna have to employ. About 5 minutes after I crossed the finish line, I was told that my dad was sitting there at the fence line. Now I was in shock. I had just crossed the finish line 5 minutes earlier. I could barely speak. And we couldn't embrace, we couldn't hug due to this fence. But we held hands through the barbed wire fence like this. And we put our heads together. And he says to me, Connor, you wrote it on the wall and you made it come true. What do you have written on your wall? Thank you.